So hi everyone, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm here with one of our successful student applicants, Ray, and I'm so thrilled to have her with me today so that we can talk a little bit about her journey, about the application process, and let her share some of her wisdom from going through this process successfully with all of you. So thank you so much, Ray, for being here with me today. I really appreciate you making the time.
No worries. Thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. So what are you finishing up or working on right now before you make the big move on to medical school?
So I graduated from my Bachelor of Kinesiology end of June. And
Mhm.
then after a couple of days, I came back to Hong Kong just to see my family and friends. And currently I'm volunteering with a friend. I'm helping her to organize a choir competition. So I'm helping her to writing scripts and just organizing materials, stuff like that.
It's great that you've gotten to take some time for yourself and to see your family before everything just kind of turns into chaos once school gets started
Yeah,
again.
exactly.
That's great. So, was this your first time applying to med school?
No, I actually tried once after I graduated from high school because I grew up in Hong Kong and they do have undergraduate programs, but
Mhm.
unfortunately I didn't get in. So I kind of looked into different universities, both local and international. And I know that I have a cousin living in Toronto, so maybe it would be a good opportunity to study abroad. So that's why I looked into U of T, found out about kinesiology, and that's why I came here. um, when I when I didn't get an offer after high school, I kind of lost hope because it was, I worked really hard for it, but then it didn't get what I wanted. And then I guess 2 winters ago, my family and I were going to Japan for a trip, and we were snowboarding, and my sister fell. And I know it's so sad. And then her wrist was painful. It was
Oh,
red. But I didn't actually know what was going on. I thought it was something minor. But then my dad insisted on going to the doctor, because he was also a doctor. So he insisted on getting an x-ray scan just in case. And it was confirmed that she had a distal radius fracture.
oof.
Yeah. So that kind of gave me a spark in trying to be a doctor again, because if my dad didn't have that medical knowledge, my family and I wouldn't be able to know that she was actually injured. That's that
Hmm.
badly. And so I think being a doctor is really important to help patients or anyone to recognize how insignificant symptoms or signs could be life threatening. And basically, I just wanted people to be more self aware and be able to take care of themselves better.
Hmm. That's an amazing story.
Thank
There's so much to that. That's it's tragic and beautiful all at the same time.
you.
I think it's great. I've done several of these interviews now, and so few students who get in are actually first-time applicants. Most of the students I've talked to have been re-applicants where,
Yeah.
they've gone through that sort of feeling of devastation of not getting in the first
Hmm.
time, but through circumstances or through their own resolve, they found something to keep pushing them forward and to try again. And so I'm sorry that your family member went through that, but at the same time, you were able to bring something really positive out of it and get some real inspiration. So that's kind of beautiful.
Thank you. My sister is much better now. Um,
Good.
yeah. And yeah, I do find a lot of people try a second time just because medical school is really competitive. And I think being a graduate, you do become more mature and you do have more knowledge in terms of the medical field.
Hmm. And in terms of knowing yourself, right? So much of the
Yes.
application process is figuring out how to really articulate your own self narrative, not just listing your CV or listing your activities or something like that, but really finding, who you are and being able to tell that convincingly to your interviewers, to the people reviewing the applications. And so, yeah,
Hmm.
having a little bit more maturity behind you gives you that sense of self-reflection, I think, that maybe a lot of us don't have at the end of high school.
Yeah, for sure. And when you mentioned about self-reflection, it got me thinking. I also did consider other professions. I did consider physio. I did consider going into public health. But then I found myself ending up wanting to study medicine again, just because I see that doctors are generally the leaders in the healthcare system. When patients are sick, doctors are usually the first group of people that they go and
Mhm.
see. They visit doctors first, and doctors will give them referrals to different specialists or professions. So I find myself wanting to have that initiative to help the patients first because before they see anyone else.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a great bit of insight just about your own self-knowledge and
Yeah.
recognizing that, not everybody can take on those leadership roles. And that's fine. If everybody were leaders, we would have a really difficult time as a species, I think. But being able to acknowledge that potential in yourself and actualize it is such an important just step in the overall process. So that's wonderful.
Mhm.
I'm glad that you were able to find that in yourself.
Thank you.
So, so how many schools did you end up applying to?
Oh wow. I applied to. It was a very long process. I applied to. I used the Irish program. It's called Atlantic Bridge. So basically, you can just submit everything, and then all the schools would be able to look at your application in just that system. So from there, I found that there were four graduate medical schools. So those medical schools, they offer medical programs to graduates like me after we get our bachelor. So there were four of them, and I got an offer from one of them. So I have an offer so far, but
Nice.
I'm also waiting back home. There's two medical schools here
Mhm.
um, in Hong Kong, and then I'm also applying to Australia. So there were three of them. So in total, that would be nine.
9. Yeah,
Yes.
I got it just as you got it. Yeah, I was tallying in my head too. Yeah, that's a lot of applications, and I imagine rather different applications because, of course, each application system has its own requirements and
Yeah,
things like that. That's a pretty huge task to take on, so good on
it
you for
is.
surviving that.
Yeah, I was just so desperate, and my parents were very supportive. So we were looking literally everywhere for it. And it was kind of good because Australian schools, their semester starts in February. So then
Oh,
their interview period would be this summer, so July and August, whereas for Ireland, it would be back in February or March.
mhm.
Yeah.
So it all worked out time-wise for you. So
Yes.
you've got one acceptance and you've got what, how many others coming up? So what was it,
I got
5?
one waitlisted at
Mhm.
home,
Okay,
but
great.
then everything I got rejected. So for among the four Irish schools that I applied to, I
Mhm.
got one offer and three rejections.
Hey, it only takes one offer.
Exactly, yes. That's all it matters.
That's
And
right. That's right.
and then in Hong Kong, I got one waitlisted, and then still waiting for an interview for the other.
Mhm.
And in Australia, I got two interviews so far, and I'm still waiting for the third one.
Nice, nice.
Yes.
So does it feel different going into the interviews now where you've gotten one acceptance, so you've got that stable ground under
Yep.
you, as opposed to before where everything was just up in the air and all in
Yeah,
question?
I was pretty nervous. I didn't know what would happen. I thought I would have a strong application. And it was, I think part of it is luck, to be honest. Yeah,
Oh,
I
don't
mean,
don't
obviously
downplay yourself. Don't
there were a
downplay
lot
yourself.
of
It takes
hard
a
work
lot of
behind
skill too.
it. Yes.
Yeah, but still, we can say fortune smiled upon you because you at least got the one acceptance.
Yes.
So, that's all that ultimately matters.
Yes.
So I know you had to, yeah, I know you had to fill out a number of different applications. What did you find was the most challenging part of the application or the interview process?
Mhm. I think the most difficult was getting started because you
Mm,
don't know what to expect. You don't know what they are looking for. I had so many extracurriculars. I didn't know what to put in there for my application, and in terms of interview, I didn't know what to expect, how should I prepare for it, etc. And so for BeMo services, I mainly use interview.
Mm-hmm.
I practice both panel and MMI.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, when I prepare for panel interviews, it's mostly answering general questions like why do I want to study medicine, what have I been doing, about the university, the program, etc. But for MMI, it's a little bit different because it's more about the skill sets and strategy, which I wasn't familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so for MMI particularly, um, I was very fortunate to have a lot of wonderful interviewers from the BeMo team. They gave me they gave me a lot of positive feedback, which really encouraged me to try harder.
That's
And
great.
they gave me kind of a strategy list,
Mm,
or kind of a step to step how to approach different questions, which helped me to be more confident when I see different types of questions.
mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah, having that framework to sort of fall back on, I think, is so helpful for so many students. Because, like you said,
it
there's so
is.
much just fear of the unknown. You have no idea
Yes,
what to expect. And even if you're familiar with the process, you never know what questions you're going to get. And so
exactly.
having and especially having something where it's still your own answer, like you're still bringing yourself and your voice to
Hmm.
your answer, but how you structure that answer really matters in terms of the ways that you convey and prioritize information and things like that. And
Hmm.
so yeah, in reflecting with students in these interviews, that's something that's come up a few times is that idea that they're able to get that balance of using and sort of refining their own voice and their own perspective, but doing so with just a little bit more structure than they had originally. And that gives you that a little bit of a sense of security, even in an always stressful type situation. Great. So you worked with BMO on your interview prep. Was there anything
Yeah.
that really surprised you about the process?
Okay, I didn't mean to brag, but the first time I did it, the interviewer said she was impressed. She was
Oh,
impressed
good.
because it was, I don't know, I was literally trying, I was just preparing stuff, answering the questions like I would. But I
Mhm,
guess because I did pay a lot of attention to detail, and I did a lot of critical thinking. And so I guess that helped me to solidify my answers better.
mhm,
I think one of the example is in MMI interviews, one type of question is that they would give you a picture, and then they would ask you to describe the picture to an
mhm,
interviewer, so that they
mhm,
could draw it for you. And I guess from there, I could notice little parts like the color difference in color and how are the lines are shaped, etc. And I was able to describe that, and so I guess that um, I was better at doing that.
It's a really challenging thing to do. Those stations are notoriously difficult. So if you had the ability to really just intuit what was necessary, that speaks a lot to your attention to detail and your ability to break down complex information to non-specialists. So good for you. By all means, brag. You deserve to shine right now. That's wonderful. So so thinking back on this whole process, what do you think you've learned from the process? And if you had one piece of advice to offer other applicants or people thinking about applying, what would that be?
There were a lot of questions. Could you break it down?
Oh, sure,
Sorry.
sure, yeah. First and foremost, what have you learned from the process,
Oh,
reflecting
what have
back?
I learned? I learned that it's important to be confident in yourself. You
Mm,
need to well, not believe, but you need to know that you are presenting yourself to the people. They are. It's not a one-way relationship where they choose you to be their medical student. Is also you choosing them, because like me, I applied to a lot of medical schools, and obviously I could only go to one because I couldn't be at two places at the same time. And so it is important to um, know that you have a strong applicant, just show what you have, and also be confident in what you're answering, especially for interview, because as a doctor, you need to be confident in what you're delivering to your patients. And so building that confidence is really important. And I think that's very valuable to you during interview and also for your future career.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's great. And, so many students don't yet have that confidence. I've been an educator for most of my adult life, teaching at university, and a lot of students have a hard time developing that sense of confidence, even when they're doing very, very well. And so I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a great lesson is to let people know that it's okay to acknowledge yourself positively and understand your strengths. You have to
Exactly.
point out your own weaknesses and work on that as well, because we all have them. But yeah, that's something that I find is in really short supply, unfortunately, that sense of confidence. And so it's good that you're able to just build that through the process. And I also like what you said about acknowledging that it's sort of a two-way process, that the school is choosing you, but you're choosing the school too. That's not something that a lot of people really think about at the beginning of the process, that you have to think about your own learning style, your own needs as a student, what you rely on
Exactly.
in terms of support and all of that. Because if you're going to a school where the curriculum doesn't suit your learning style, you're going to have a really hard time at something that's already incredibly difficult. So I think that
Yep.
was really insightful.
Thanks.
Sure. And the other question was, if you had one piece of
Hmm.
advice to offer other applicants, what would that be? You just gave a bunch of advice, but if you have any more,
Yes.
yeah.
Um, let me think. I guess, yeah, I guess my main advice is just to be confident of what you're delivering, because as a you have to believe in what you have learned through different experiences, whether it's at school or from extracurriculars or even sports team. All of these experiences build you as a character, and there is no one single personality that's suitable to be a doctor. I Because there's so many specialties and there's so many roles in the medical field. Obviously different people are suitable for different things, and so just be confident in who you are, and go from there.
Mhm. Yeah, and again, really great advice. There's the students sometimes try to think of what the school wants to hear from them in their applications, in their interviews. This idea that there's one single mold that they can fill, that all
Mm-hmm.
med school students must fill. And it's just not the case. They want, just like you said, they want to know who you are at your core, what your
Exactly,
values
yes.
are, how you perceive the world. And
Mm-hmm.
that sort of it takes all kinds, right? There isn't one particular type of person that goes through med school and becomes a doctor. So I think that's really useful advice for them to keep in mind. You just need to figure out how to best articulate your own narrative and make yourself known to them, because that's what they're
Mm-hmm.
looking for more than anything else in a lot of these materials.
Yeah.
That's great. So, what are you most excited about? I know you still have some decisions in front of you in terms of where you're going to go, but you
Yes.
know that no matter what, you're going to med school. That's happening. So, what are you most excited about as you begin this next part of your educational journey?
um I mean, I don't know where I will be settling at yet,
Mhm.
but if I were going to Ireland, I've heard a lot of good things about it, other than the weather. people have been saying, people have been saying, just ignore the weather. People are very nice. That's what it matters.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
um, and it's really pretty there, very historical country. Um, and so, yeah, I really look forward to it. I really love traveling because it does help me to see different cultures and help me to consider their different perspectives, which I think is also important as a doctor, because obviously we need to be culturally sensitive when we
Mhm,
treat patients of different cultural and ethnical backgrounds. And so I
mhm,
think being able to, I mean, obviously, if finance is a problem to some students, a semester or a year abroad would be a valuable experience, just because it will help you to expose to different cultures and different people, and it will really help you understand their values and how they see different topics.
hmm And I love that that's where your mind goes in thinking about this. You're thinking about all these places that you're going to go and study. And one of the first things that you say is, and that's
Yeah.
great because I'm going to get to meet people of different cultures and different backgrounds and learn about them. And you're just immediately connecting that to practicing medicine. So it's lovely to see those things just become a normal and natural part of who you are as a person. So that's fantastic. Great.
Hmm.
So, what do you ultimately hope to accomplish as a practicing professional? Where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Well, that's a good question. See, when I talk to medical students, they always say that they knew what they wanted before, and then it keeps changing once they
Mm,
do rotations because they don't really know what they want to do. So
yep.
for now, I can see myself being a family doctor just
Mhm.
because I really love to support and help people in a very comprehensive way. And I really love to see or help people grow throughout the life. Um, and that's what I really value as a family doctor, that I will be able to see that.
That's so beautiful. That's a really lovely way of thinking about it.
Oh,
I love that. You've touched my heart. That's beautiful. But yeah, as you say, once you get there, you might change your mind completely. That's very, very common.
exactly.
There's a
Yep.
unknown unknowns out there, things you don't know that you don't
Exactly.
know.
Yes.
That's wonderful. Oh, goodness. Well, any final words or anything else that you want to add today?
Uh, Not really. I guess if students are applying now, just know that I've been there. The process is pretty difficult. There's a lot to prepare, but just believe in yourself because eventually everything will pay off. You guys work so hard for this, and even if you know first time, second try didn't work, third time's a charm.
That's right. I love your optimism. Absolutely beautiful. Well, Ray, thank you so much again for sitting down with me today. This has been a wonderful conversation, and I know that our students will find this really helpful and inspirational.
Aw. Well, thank you for having me.
My pleasure. All right. Well, take care, and everyone else, I'll see you with the next interview. Thanks.